All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on optimizing your sales tech stack for high performance. I'm Brian Frabel, Vice President of Marketing from Veelo, and I will be your host for this 30-minute webinar. To kick us off on the agenda, I'm going to go through just scope considerations because this is an awfully big topic and we could spend hours talking about it. And then what I'm going to try to do is lay out a framework that I hope is useful for you in prioritizing and figuring out where you need to focus on your sales tech stack. And then we'll talk also about some business challenges and questions to ask yourself before you dive into this space, because it can be very complex. You can spend a lot of time, and you can waste, frankly, you can waste a lot of money too if you don't make the right decisions. So, in terms of scope, I'm sure many of you have seen the MarTech stack infographic, I guess you could call it, that Scott Brinker over at chiefmartech.com has done. And it's amazing because the MarTech stack grew from 150 companies in 2011, and just 5 years later he had over 4,000 companies. And you can see there on the right from the quotes that companies that are embracing technology and using it wisely are gaining a competitive advantage. And so it's arguable that the MarTech stack is ahead of the sales tech stack. The sales tech stack isn't far behind. And you'll see as I go into my framework, one of the things with these types of infographics is that they put these nice, neat little categories and buckets, and then they place companies in them. But the truth is, different tools do different things, and it's not always easy to put one tool into one bucket. It's not always easy to say that their competitor does exactly the same thing they do. In fact, a lot of times you'll find that depending on what you want, one company will do 3 things, another company will do just one thing. And so you as a buyer have to decide what do you need your tool to do first before you can start comparing and evaluating the tools. So before we get into the framework, I thought I'd lay out 6 simple steps that you can use to implement your sales tech stack. And the first is, first, define your business pain. What is the challenge that you're trying to solve with technology? And have that clearly identified. Maybe it's onboarding. I don't have a good onboarding, maybe I have an onboarding process, but I don't have tools to do it quickly and efficiently. Or maybe it's, I have way too much content and my reps can't find the content and they're wasting a third of their time just searching for content. So define a couple problems. I wouldn't go more than 3, and have them clearly written down. Then you need to align. Who are the key stakeholders? So if we go back to my example of content, chances are you should probably get sales and marketing into a room and get aligned on what is the problem with content. Is it too much? Do you not have the right content for the entire sales funnel and all your sales aligned to your sales stages? Is it a repository problem? So get the key stakeholders in a room and agree on the problem. Then you're going to have to prioritize. Chances are you're going to come up with a list that's way too long, and you probably want to tackle your top 1 to 3 key challenges. Once you have that, then you can go into the evaluation stage. And I think if you start the evaluation stage and you start calling vendors and getting demos, before you do the first things, you're going to just be overwhelmed and you're not going to know where to start. So don't start that call to the vendor until you know what you're trying to do. Then, once you've made your decision, you're not done. Deploying it, and these last 2 pieces, deploying it and promoting it are critical to adoption and usage and ultimately getting value if it's a good tool. So just because you implement a tool, don't expect your sales force to embrace it. I think any of you that have good experience with sales teams know that behavior change can be really, really difficult. And so especially if your tool requires a significant behavior change, you're going to have to need an internal launch plan. It's probably a kickoff and probably a series of reminders and check-ins with your sales team over the course of the first 90 days. So don't forget this critical part about deploying and promoting it. So that's a simple 6 steps that you can take to implementing your sales tech stack. What I'm going to be talking about is really these first 4, is helping you to define your problem, align, the alignment phase, prioritizing, and I'm going to spend a lot of my time in that prioritizing piece, and then hopefully this framework will make it easy then for you to evaluate. All right, so let's start off with the framework. And if you've seen any of the analysts from Gartner, Forrester, Serious Decisions, and all of the other analysts, oftentimes they're really complex. There's a lot of different categories, and like I said, oftentimes they put people in boxes, even though a tool may do not as much in that box, or they do a lot more than that. And so what I've tried to do is instead look at it from your just normal sales process and how you work. So one is the sales process, and I'll dive a little deeper into this, but this is from the beginning. Who should I contact, all the way to how do I close? Then there's some support functions, I'll call them. There's people development, training, ongoing training, for instance. There's administrative support. That can be anything from managing commissions and tracking that to a handful of other things we'll get into. And then finally, there's business intelligence and analytics. As you implement technology and tools, you will start to gather a lot of data, and with that data, you potentially have a lot of insights you can dive into. I am not going to dive in this webinar into the business intelligence and analytics piece, other than to say that what we're going to talk about could generate a lot of data, and it could be valuable data if you have the right BI tools. All right, so let's start with the sales process, and we'll start from the beginning and go all the way to the end. So the first is getting the information, and this is contact information, emails, phone numbers, and then there's also, I have a name, but I need to go get address, phone number, email, whatever it may be, title, whatever it may be. The second piece is, okay, so I have a whole bunch of names and contact information. Well, who do I contact? And oftentimes for companies, it's not just who do I contact, but who are the people I should contact because they're the most likely to buy sooner rather than later. I'd rather have my sales teams calling people that are going to buy something in the next 60 to 90 days as opposed to someone that might buy in the next year to 18 months. It can also be account-based selling, so maybe it's not just individuals, but it could be what are the best accounts for my technology or for my product or service. How do I manage my pipeline? As a salesperson, I may have things very early on in discovery all the way to proposal. I have limited amount of time. Where should I spend my time so that I am maximizing revenue? And then there's also account planning, which is particularly important if you're dealing with large enterprises, multiple divisions. Alongside of deciding who to contact, there's how should I contact them? In some cases, if you're cold prospecting and you have a list of cold prospects, a automated phone dialer may be the right tool for you. Social selling tools are definitely newer and can be very effective if used correctly. There are scheduling tools. If you're an inside sales rep, online meeting tools are particularly useful. So there's a whole series of technologies here on how do I contact them. And it's not just, it can be the physical means, email, online, but it also can be, should I contact them via email, contact them via social, contact them via phone. Now, let's say you use all these tools, you're a good salesperson, and you get a meeting with someone. It could be in person or it could be virtual. What do I do to sell now? And in this space, you have presentation tools. There's all sorts of sharing tools. There are tools that recommend content, so you know what to say, what to share for that person, tailored to the specific need. And then there's all sorts of content management tools to manage the variety of content. And then finally, What do you do to close? And this is where quote tools, contract and signing, electronic signing. So when you do have a handshake and you need to move from the handshake to the legal document and ultimately a contract that you can invoice against, how do you make that happen faster? Under people development, which don't necessarily follow the sales process but are critical to a robust and high-performing sales team, there's onboarding and training and coaching that is critical to building and retaining your sales force. And then in administrative support, you have everything from forecasting, quota management, compensation, dividing territories, etc. So this is the basic framework. I'm going to walk through each of these pieces in a little bit more detail, give you a couple of representative companies. And the purpose of this was not to give you an exhaustive list of companies, but rather to help you prioritize and define your pain points so that when you go and evaluate, you're evaluating against a set of criteria. So let's start by gathering information. And the key questions to ask here is, do I have enough prospects? Do I have the right contact information? Am I using up-to-date data? Do I have the whole buyer's family? If I know I have to hit sales, marketing, legal, and finance, but I only have a contact within marketing, how do I get the rest of the buyer's family? So a couple companies that provide services here, companies like ZoomInfo and Discover.org. And as you evaluate these types of companies, some are very good at just giving you high volume. Others specialize in high quality data. And typically you'll find in this space that if they specialize in high volume, data quality is lower. If they specialize in high quality data, then the volume is lower. You just have to decide what's right for your organization. So the next stage then we go into, okay, so I have a whole bunch of names, numbers, companies. Who do I contact and how do I contact them? And here what you're really looking at is I have a finite valuable set of time for my sales force. How do I make sure that they are spending their time on things that are most likely to convert to a sale? And that may be someone very early on in the sales stage, or maybe someone very late in the proposal stage. There's a number of companies in this space, such as InsideSales.com, that use predictive and machine learning technologies to try to predict and guide your sales reps to the place where they should spend their time. There's also tools here that help you manage the entire buyer's family. It's very easy to have a sales rep get caught up in the day-to-day with one person. Maybe they're in marketing, but when you know that sales, legal, and finance are also going to have an impact on the deal, you want your sales rep working those people as well. And so a couple of these tools that I have down here help you and help the sales rep prioritize that and make sure that they're constantly working the entire buyer's family and not just spending all their time on one individual within the organization. So then we get to, okay, so we have prioritized our time, we're talking to the right people. Now what do I do to sell? And within here you'll see things like presentation tools, tools that help you share, could be virtually, could be via something as simple as email, but then they also alert you when your prospect has interacted with the content so you can have immediate follow-up. It also helps prioritize, or actually it helps save the rep's time by finding the right content for the exact situation. So if I'm going into an automotive company and I want to share a case study, the most effective case study is going to be another automotive example. But if my next meeting is with a financial services company, I don't want to show an automotive case study. I want to show a financial services case study. And so there are tools and technology that take the searching and the guesswork out for the sales rep and just automatically, based on the opportunity, give the sales rep exactly what they need. And then in addition, even better, is the ability to add a little coaching alongside that content, because we all know that the people sell, content doesn't. So we recommend a piece of content, my automotive example. Let's also remind our sales reps of our 3 key value propositions and remind them how to sell on value, because too many sales reps revert back to selling on price. So coaching alongside content is another powerful technology feature, I should say, that is delivered in this space. The next then is, great, we've moved the deal along, and so now how do I quickly get from, I've produced a quote for my prospective customer, to how do I actually get to cash so I can start invoicing? How do I make sure that proposals and quotes are being done correctly, especially if I have a lot of product lines and it's complex? The more complexity you have in your business, the more likely you need something like a CPQ tool. And then ultimately, there are also tools that allow you to do electronic signature, do it quickly, redline things, go back and forth with a customer, and get things signed sooner rather than later. Okay. Whoops. All right. And the next one then, we move into the support functions. What I just went through was the sales stage, from who do I contact all the way to how do I close, but then there's also the ongoing support, such as people development. If I'm a VP of sales and I hire new people, I want people up and running as fast as possible, and I want them hitting quota as fast as possible. So what tools are out there for onboarding? There's also ongoing training and reinforcement, and that's not only sales skills, but also you probably have product launches periodically. How do I effectively and efficiently train my sales reps? Sure, you can do a 1-hour webinar when the product launch happens, but chances are a lot of people will forget that information. So how do I provide ongoing reinforcement so they don't forget it and they retain that knowledge? And then there's coaching. I mean, let's be honest, sales is a lot like athletics. The more you practice, the better you get. And so coaching is a critical piece of it, and there's some really great tools out there today that, even if you're a very dispersed sales force across multiple time zones, allow you to virtually coach your reps using things like video, which is the next best thing to being face-to-face. On the administrative support side, there are things, oftentimes these are the tools that most appeal to sales operations type folks. How do we get accurate forecasts, especially if you're a publicly traded company? That is extremely important. How do you manage and set quotas? How do you divide territories up? And so there are tools here that, if you're looking to make sure that you're giving sales reps good, robust territories, or on the flip side, you're not setting territories and staffing with too few reps, using all sorts of forms of data, predictively giving you advice on how to set your territories. And then finally, on business intelligence and analytics, like I said, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but as you start to if you just think about your CRM, your marketing automation platform, and then even if you were to implement just 2 or 3 of the tools that I provided here, you have a ton of data that you could create some incredible insights. And so there are business intelligence tools that can take that and start to crunch that, and then using big data and analytics, potentially create some really interesting insights for you. Almost every single one of the tools that I have showed you has some form of out-of-the-box base reporting, but if you want to take it to the next level, you're probably looking at one of the companies I have, or their competitors that I have down here at the bottom of this slide. Okay, so hopefully that framework was useful to you. As I mentioned, the goal here was not to create an exhaustive list of companies and put a lot of logos, but rather give you a framework so that you can prioritize your business needs and then create a framework that you can evaluate before you start calling vendors, so you don't waste your time calling vendors that can't solve your need. I'd caution you to look at any of the frameworks or infographics that are out there on the web that pigeonhole a vendor into one space. I think you're better off, if you think a vendor might be able to help you, take your framework and ask, can you solve these business challenges? And you'll have a much better conversation. Because a lot of vendors do cross category boundaries. It's not black and white. It is very much shades of gray, and unfortunately the infographics make it more black and white. And then you also find that a lot of vendors will solve the same business challenge in different ways. And so you have to decide for your business what's the right way. And a great example of that is coaching. There are coaching applications out there that are all about practice. And so sales reps doing, say like a recorded video and then sending it to the manager. There's also coaching in the moment. I'm about to walk into a deal against competitor XYZ. Wouldn't it be great if I had a quick reminder of what my 3 key value propositions and selling points against competitor XYZ was? That's a form of coaching as well, but very different than the practice via video. So you have to decide what you want. A lot of these frameworks will say coaching, but they don't really define what kind of coaching. And then the other thing I would say is tackle the challenge from a problem. So I hear this a lot. My company needs a learning management system, or we need an enterprise content management system. Frame it, I need a better way to onboard. I need a better way to train. I need a better way to manage my content. I need a better way for my sales reps to find the content, and then start talking to people. Because again, categories can be a dangerous thing. A learning management system can have a lot of different features. So you may not need a learning management system. You may need something that's as simple as a regular coaching tool. It really depends on what you're trying to solve. So don't go, I guess my key point here is don't go after technology categories, go after business problems and find the right tool for you. And then last but not least, make sure you plan. This is not something you should go and spend $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year on. If you haven't thought through the deployment and the education and the promotion internally before you deploy, you're probably in trouble. So make sure your plan includes not just the evaluation piece of it, but the deployment and the promotion piece of it as well. Because if you don't plan, you're going to end up with that pile of shoes there on the left, and you'll have a bunch of point solutions that don't integrate with each other, don't talk to each other, and a bunch of meaningless data. But if you plan this correctly and you think about what you need, you probably stagger your launches of multiple tools and then make sure that you can use that data in some insightful way. You're going to get much higher business results from it. So with that, I want to say thank you for attending. I'd encourage you to go on our website. We actually have a technology, sales tech framework checklist that you can go through, so to take some of the concepts here that I've introduced, but we've actually outlined it in a document with pretty detailed questions that you can use as a checklist as you get into the evaluation stage of the technology. So thanks again, and please check out the resources for more information.